Whenever you're ready, Tom.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the October 12th, 2022 meeting of the El Sobrante Municipal Advisory Council. This is a council which advises the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors. And I would like to start the meeting by taking attendance. Can we do that, Edgar?
Yes. So Thomas Lang,
Here.
George Cleveland,
Here.
Susan Boudreau, Jim Herman,
Present.
Dr. Melinda McLean,
She's sent an email, she's gonna be late.
Mickey Norris,
Here.
Tom Owens,
Here.
Shirley Rosenthal Winston,
Here.
Emily Whelan.
Here.
So we have, it looks like we have everyone.
Okay.
Or most.
Excellent, a quorum. And as you informed me, Edgar, we won't be approving the minutes at this meeting. We will approve the August minutes together with the September minutes next month. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the treasurer's report?
So we still have our 3,000 that were allocated every year. We haven't used any. And I believe in the last meeting, I read the policies of how we can use those funds, was essentially is anything that has to do with our meetings. And if we continue to have them in person, we can use those funds for, anything from providing more flyers, more resources, to having snacks and beverages and things of that kind. And I believe I share that document with the MAC members, but if not, I can resend it.
Okay. So anybody who's interested in that document should reach out to Edgar. So we have a detailed, a long schedule of presentations this meeting. We are not going to have any development plans or variance reports or anything like that. It's going to be all presentations. And we're going to start off with the county updates, which will be presented by Edgar.
Yes. So our first update was that several community members from El Sobrante, as well as from East Richmond Heights, reached out to Supervisor John Joy's office regarding a MOU with East Bay Mud and the county regarding emergency water services in case of an earthquake or a major natural disaster in the neighborhood. So where we're at with that is essentially we've met with Public Works and discussed, as well as with the Office of Emergency Services, to discuss a plan of how this MOU will be. And after meeting with John suggested that we will make the MOU not just with West County, but it'll be a county-wide MOU. So this agreement will be with East Bay Mud and the whole county. For those reasons, we're looking at creating a group with representatives from each district, that being Federal Glovers, Supervisor Candace, and Supervisor Mitchoff, to discuss, like the language that's going to be in this MOU. So essentially, we already had our first meeting with East Bay Mud and Public Works of discussing a plan to create a countywide MOU. And now we're contacting the different supervisors to discuss how that MOU is going to look like and what's going to be the language and what East Bay Mud and the county is going to be responsible for. Okay. Another item that I want to give a report on was the El Sobrante Park Working Group. So as folks know, we had our first, at least the first meeting that I've been a part of in September. And out of that meeting, the outcome was to develop a cost estimate for construction and the maintenance of a park at the Maori property based on the plan submitted by the citizens of Greener El Sobrante and their unsuccessful Prop 68 grant application. So develop an estimate cost of construction, reviewing all the documents provided by citizens of Greener El Sobrante and the realtor to analyze whether there is any soil contamination on the Maori site, since part of it was used as a gas station. Once Public Works has finished these tasks, we'll have another parks, El Sobrante Park Working Group meeting. And hopefully we're aiming for that meeting to be sometime in mid to late November. So we want to have another meeting in November, worst case in December, but we want the county to assess whether there's any contamination and provide a estimate cost of construction and maintenance of the specifically of the Maori property. Okay, so another item I wanted to report on was that the city of Pinot has approved a contract with Contra Costa Fire District or Consolidated Fire District or ConFire to provide fire service to the city of Pinot. The city's firefighters will become employees of ConFire. ConFire will operate the existing downtown Pinot Fire Station and the Pinot Valley Fire Station, which will open in early 2023 with $2 million in annual funding through Measure X. This will allow the local agency formation commission for approval. Wait, give me a second. So the ConFire board, which is the board of supervisors, approved this arrangement on Tuesday. So they approved this arrangement of Pinot working under ConFire. This will allow the local agency formation commission to approve this transition soon. By having this new contract, the new fire station, both medical responses and fire responses will be quicker in Pinot and in the area surrounding, which include El Sobrante. One last item I want to report, actually, I have a few more. So on Tuesday, I did a bike ride on San Pablo Dam Road, and I went with bike advocates to essentially see, get an assessment of the litter and the quality of the road, specifically for cyclists in the area. So I started at Bear Creek and I ended at Castle Ranch Road, which is most of the eastern part of San Pablo Dam Road. I know that the Public Works Department is going to present on the western part of the road. And just a quick overview, some of the items that I saw was just, as everyone sees, is trash and debris, which inevitably accumulates on the road for whatever reason. And also on the west side of the old San Pablo Dam Road, there was mud, and there was like a boulder slide. You usually see that on the southern part of the road. And along there's also a concrete barrier that kind of bleeds into the bike lane, and there's overgrown vegetation that's also on the bike lane. So these items were communicated to Public Works on our monthly Public Works meeting. And Public Works took note of the litter and what's happening. And they informed us that they're working with a consulting group to work on what is needed to do renovations or rehabilitation on San Pablo Dam Road. So from my understanding, they're going to get this information from the consulting group, and then they're going to start on the planning stages of how to rehabilitate San Pablo Dam Road, which it seems that what's going to take priority is the foundation of the road. And looking forward, in November, we're going to have the county provide a presentation on the Envision 2040 general plan, which is going to focus on specifically issues that pertain to El Sobrante. So I encourage our community members and our MAG members to look over the Envision 2040 Contra Costa general plan, become a bit familiar with it, see what it provides, what it might lack for our next meeting. And I can share that after this presentation. I'll put it on the group chat for folks can see it. In November, we're looking at doing a El Sobrante dumpster day, which essentially we will have a couple of dumpsters ranging from 40 yarders to 20 yarders, where El Sobrante residents can come, including El Sobrante and Rollingwood, can come and with a driver license that prove that they're El Sobrante or Rollingwood residents, and dump any big items to these dumpsters free of charge. We're still looking at what day that's going to be. We're thinking sometime in mid to late November. And we're also trying to find or pin down the location. So as soon as we have more information, I will send that out. And I know John is going to do an e-blast and just get the word out of where the location and when is the dumpster run going to be. And that's all I have. Thomas, if there's
Okay.
any questions from the folks, I can take them now.
All right, thank you. The great presentation. So we'll start off with questions from the council. So Mickey, your hand's up.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Edgar. Just want to clarify for people that the dumpster day is not, it's where people get to actually get rid of their stuff from their homes. It's not a part of it's not our regular cleanup activity that we're doing. We do get dumpsters from them for our big cleanups, for our National Coastal Cleanup Days and also for our Earth Day. But this is a special, I guess it'll be quarterly, ultimately, opportunity for people to get rid of their stuff instead of dumping it out into the streets. Also, Edgar, as part of that, going down San Pablo Dam Road, you know, like it really disgusts me by the reservoir, all the litter there and everything. So I'm wondering, is that something Contra Costa is also taking into consideration, not just the foundation? Or is it, because last time when we were talking about it, we weren't sure if that was the jurisdiction of the county to clean up, or if it was DB Mud, or if it was another property. But I'm hoping that that will be part of it, because it's such a beautiful drive, except for all the litter that we see now, and it's really gotten out of control. So I hope that they will incorporate that into what they do.
Yeah, I think it depends where on San Pablo Dam Road it is, because I know part of it becomes part of the city. So I think if it's on the road, for the most part, I feel confident saying that it's probably Public Works who's responsible for it. But we have folks here in Public Works who can probably answer that. But I think it depends. From the conversation I had, it depends specifically on where the trash is at. But if it's an unincorporated area, from my understanding, that's Public Works. And there is an app that I want to share with folks. I have it in my phone where community members can log on and take a picture and request, you know, a service to be done by Public Works. And that has to do a lot with like litter and maintenance and stuff of that nature. The application is called Mobile Citizen. And I know that John made a social media post on it, and we can reshare it and share it with the MAC members, but they do have that tool for folks to submit a service request.
It's really, I have to give a shout out, kudos to Mobile Citizen. I used it 3 times today to report illegal dumps and a dead animal. I don't know if I can really do report a deer that was killed on San Pablo Dam Road, but I tried. I put that under other. But just to be clear about the San Pablo Dam Road, I'm talking about the part near the reservoir, and a lot of it's just stuck in you'll see it all along, I'm sure you did, the vegetation. It just gets accumulated in there. It's not exactly on the road, but we need to really clean that up. So thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mickey. Are there further questions from the council?
No, thank you.
Yes.
See you, Susan.
Yeah, we have Sue.
So I have been, well, I should say this publicly, but it turns out you can actually bike along the old San Pablo Dam Road. And what I'd like to push on is to make it so it's not as illegal. Because at the moment, East Bay Mud has notices saying no bikes, but there's actually no reason bikes shouldn't go the first part of the trail, and then it joins up with a road. And the reason I'm pushing on this is because this would be a wonderful way to get.
Are you listening to On the Road?
No, there's
the monthly meeting is on.
Oh, was that an echo from the thing?
No,
Someone-
there we
No,
go.
some of it wasn't muted, but now is, so just happened to have a British sounding voice like yours.
So, with that. So anyway, that would be an almost zero cost thing to do. And it could take a little bit, certainly mountain bike traffic off of the road. It's a fabulous ride. It's a nice ride with families. And quite a bit of it is paved. And
Okay,
then it comes out at where you turn off to the East Bay Mud. There's a building by the side of the reservoir. Then you can go up and rejoin the San Pablo Road from there.
okay. I think I'm not quite sure which site that is, but I know where the old San Pablo Dam Road is. And I think I've seen some of those gates from East Bay Mud that says you can't be here for whatever
Just in
reason.
front of the dam,
Okay,
there's, as you're going down to Kennedy Grove, there's a place where you can get through to walk that trail.
okay,
And my question is, why can't that allow bikes? And then if it does allow bikes, then we can actually put some notices up and say, hey, let's go this way and get you off the road.
okay,
Traffic.
okay. Thank you. I don't know why they don't allow bikes, but I'll ask, and I'll try to find out and see, and I'll let John know that's it.
Okay, that some people have been doing that anyway.
I will, I know, it's a public meeting, so they might just see it, so I will certainly pass that along. Yeah.
Done.
You know, well, I hope it's not, I imagine, I'm sure it's all goodwill, it's not illegal. And now we have the sheriff here and we have police. We have Lieutenant Rodriguez here, but, thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, further questions, for Edgar?
Yes, Edgar, is there any way we could look at it now and Bing? Because we could get a picture. You could start to scroll and see what's.
right, so I think like we can find out the location that Sue is talking about, but to get the answer of why it's
Oh,
not,
fine.
that's something that will have to be at a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'm wondering if maybe we can move to the next section of the presentations, which are from law enforcement and fire. So if there are no objections, we can move into that part of the meeting with a presentation by Lieutenant Mark Rodriguez of the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department.
Hi, good evening. Thank you guys for having me. I'll start off with the monthly reports. For the month of September, the Sheriff's Office fielded 826 calls for service. Of those calls for service, we generated 79 reports. Our select crime trends for the 3-month span, we had 22 reports in July, 27 in August, and 21 in September. We did see a decrease in the burglaries. The vandalisms and petty thefts held consistent. And then we also saw an increase in recovered stolen vehicles. So getting people's property back is always a good thing, assuming that it's returned in good order. Other things of note, we continue to work with code enforcement on abatement. They had a couple projects out here in the month of September. One was abating the hillside. There's several lots on Hillside Drive, but one in particular that a gentleman was living there, and it wasn't on the up and up, and he had several warnings, didn't comply, and his property was abated to include removing a RV that was on there. We've dealt with him on several occasions. A lot of it had to do with harassment of folks that were going and hiking and using the trails in the area. So we are familiar with him. He didn't create any issues during the removal or during the abatement process for us, which is a good thing. The other was an RV that was parked for a long time behind Rancho Liquors back in the back vacant lot there. Same thing, been given several notices. That RV was actually abated last week. So code enforcement and the sheriff's office went out there and removed the RV. And outside of that, other things to note as far as the West End at large, just things to be aware of, especially for parents on the call, is last week we had a call at Montalvan Manor Elementary, and it was essentially a prank by students on scene. One of the students airdropped a threat of an active shooter on campus to other students within the classroom. And if you're familiar with how airdrop works, is if you have yours turned on and you're in a general vicinity, that message is then shared with you, whether or not it's a form of a text message or an image. So the school responded appropriately. They locked down the campus. They called us. We responded. One of the things that we did find that were very helpful was some of the community notification apps. So specifically from the district's standpoint, we had asked that the district put out messages to the parents that were responding to the school. It just so happened that they were responding for early release. It happened about the same time that the kids were getting out of school. But you can imagine being a parent showing up to a school and seeing that many police officers, your mind automatically goes to the negative. So between the officers on scene, as well as the school putting out the messages and staff relaying the messages, we were able to, in an orderly fashion, evacuate the school, make sure all the kids were returned to their parents. And after the investigation, it was confirmed that it was a prank. We were able to find the notes on the student's phone that initially sent it, and it was an isolated incident. However, I know in the Bay Area at large, there's been similar instances, specifically though at high schools. So there was 4 high schools in the Bay Area where similar things were done, and you can imagine it just creates a lot of panic. And then, so just for those of you on this, parents, if you happen to have have those discussions with your kids about using the cell phones appropriately, and then also, just being mindful of what information they're sharing with their peers, whether it's a joking or being serious. And then if we end up in a response like that, just know that we're going to do our best to get as much information out to you as we can, so that everyone knows what's actually going on. So outside of that, that's all I got at this time. Any questions for me?
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation, Lieutenant Rodriguez. We have a question, Martha Bertelson. Martha, you're muted.
Just figured that out. Thank you. I have a question and a comment, if I may. The question is, did the Sheriff's Department address the RVs that were on Davila Way? You mentioned moving them off Hillside and from behind Rancho. When we did our last cleanup, there were discovered several RVs along Davila that were leaving large amounts of trash on the roadside.
To my knowledge, Martha, those have not been moved yet. The county does have funding that was earmarked specifically to deal with the RVs. When it comes to getting those, a lot of times those are scheduled events, primarily due to the fact that the tow companies that have to come out to get those, one, they have to have the equipment to be able to do it, and then at a lot of times there's not much value in terms of business for them to come out and do it, because a lot of those are in such disarray that they end up being filed as junk, and it actually puts a cost on the tow company. So we have certain ones that code enforcement has agreements or contracts with to come out and get those, but you can imagine a lot of times it takes some coordination. So I'll follow up on the ones on the Villa, but to my knowledge at this time they haven't been.
Thank you. I just, following up and keeping an eye on them, and we just don't want to see another big encampment get established.
Absolutely.
So if I may, a second comment or question. A neighbor brought to my attention the fact that, as you know, as part of the library remodel, they erected a big fence at the back part of the plaza that's behind the library, but the library property actually goes all the way down to the creek. So for safety, there was a gate put in that fence, but the sheriff's deputies don't seem to have a key to that gate. So if they were called for a hazard down there, whether it's somebody homeless being ill or some kind of problem, their options are to go around to Appian and scramble down the bank, or to try to duck through the hole in the fence, which is how homeless get there. But there is a gate, and there seems to me the sheriff's deputies should all have a key to that gate and know how to use it, because, you know, like most gates in El Sobrante, you gotta work to open it.
Yeah, if we can get a copy of that key, that'd be great. Depending on the exigency and the need for us to get down there, our alternative is to cut the lock, and we'll replace it at a later time. But again, you know, if we can avoid that and have a key, I'm not sure who has the key that would be able to provide us a copy with it, but or go over the fence. The problem with going over the fences on hillsides or going down any embankments is there's a risk of injury. But yeah,
The fence was designed not to be easy to climb. And the lock that's currently on that gate is a specially hardened lock because it was cut by vandalism more than once. Spawners has a key, and I'm a member of Spawners because we do trash assessments down there for the county. So we were given a key to access the area. We have recently, or will soon, I'm not sure where it stands, make sure that the library staff has a key. They had an older key to a previous lock when we inquired. So you would either be able to get a key from the library staff, or I can work directly with you, or work through our coordinator for Spawners, Lauren Iverson. Either way, you'll be happy to help you obtain a copy. But I'm just sure that you would need many copies for various deputies, so they'd have it handy.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I'll send you my contact information in the chat, and I'll work directly with you to get that. And I think we can get away with just a couple of them, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you addressing that for us. Thank you.
Well, as I said, I think it's a public safety issue. They should have the availability of the easiest access point. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Are there further questions for Lieutenant Rodriguez? I don't see any. Oh, there we go. Pam Morris. Pam, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's a different button. I know you may not have an answer to this question, but it's an important question. When people that are living in these RVs, broken down shambles that they are, creating an encampment situation which involves a lot of trash, it's very unsightly, unsafe, and unwanted by the community. And yet, by removing the RV from the person, they have now no home, when they did have at least a home. Now they have the streets or a tent. Is it possible that these broken down RVs are better than a tent? They're better than an encampment. Couldn't they be located to a piece of land somewhere, not in the city, not adjacent to the city, but a more rural piece of land? Would that be a possibility? Because evicting them from their RV is evicting them from the only home they have. And it forces them to be truly homeless in a tent or on the street.
Yeah. Hi, Pam. Yes, I agree that it does. While it may not be within code, or the condition of these RVs may not be ideal, it is a form of shelter for them. There are other risks that come with that. A lot of times by the time that we're actually having the RV towed or abated, we've made contact with the individuals there several times, several warnings. One, to ensure that the RV is in working condition. There's certain things that have to be in place. The other part is that they just can't live on them in the places that they are. It has to be a permitted area or zoned area for that. But it is a collaborative approach, I would say. Is I often have communication with Edgar, with the Supervisor Joy's office, County Health. We've reached out to them, Environmental Health Services. A lot of times we'll go out and meet with folks, as well as CORE, to offer them services. The challenge we run into is that a lot of times folks just aren't willing to take the services. A perfect example is we had an encampment off of Highway 80, just off of Willow Pass, there by Rodeo. And it was becoming a continuous issue. Also, a couple fires that were started by that encampment between the freeway or the sound wall and the residents there. One of the individuals that was living in that encampment had family members in a neighboring jurisdiction that were willing to take them in. Hey, come live at the house. No, no rent, nothing, like, just come live at the house. And the individual refused, said, no, I would rather live on the street. So that's one of the challenges we run into. The other part of the land, that's something that again, that's going to be at the county level or the municipal level, as far as the city, depending on the jurisdiction, because you got to have the property to be able to do that. And then there's a whole list of other things that have to be considered for that.
I know it's not easy. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for your question, Pam. Are there further questions for Lieutenant Rodriguez? So I don't see any. So Lieutenant Rodriguez, thank you so much for your support, and thank you and the Sheriff's Office for your support of the Sobrante stroll in September. Couldn't have been better from the security and traffic point of view.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Happy to participate.
All right. In that case, now we'll move to a presentation from County Fire. Battalion Chief Thomas is on the list, but I don't see anybody from County Fire on the Zoom. Maybe somebody's in person.
Station
Edgar?
69. Station 69 is on the call. That's their ID, so I think someone is there for the presentation.
Okay. Do we have somebody from the County Fire? Okay, in that case, maybe this can sort. Oh, there it is. El Sobrante Station 69, hands up. Oh, okay, go ahead, please. Station 69. Okay, while we wait for that to sort itself out, maybe we can go to a presentation by Officer Tim Leviste of Highway Patrol.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks again for having me. For the month of October, September to October, our call volume here in El Sobrante has actually dropped down a little bit here. The past month, the CHP has investigated 8 minor traffic collisions, 5 hit and runs, and 1 major traffic collision involving a pedestrian that was just a few days ago. That one is still being under investigation, so I can't speak too much to that one particularly. We had a handful of parking complaints that were addressed. 4 stolen vehicle reports were taken, and 3 vehicles were recovered. Nothing really stands out as far as the past month here. Just a little bit of current events for the Highway Patrol. Our staffing has been very thin. As I spoke the last time I was on, we have a number of new officers that are being trained. Actually, 3 of those officers that were in training are scheduled to be off training by the end of this week. An additional 4 officers should be ready to go on their own within the next week following. And then we've got another 7 officers that are still in the middle of training. They've got another couple months left before they're ready to be released. That being said, the CHP's numbers have been kind of stretched a little thin. Not only are we having to field the number of calls that we typically deal with, but we're also being asked to assist with some high profile events. Namely, like today, we were over at the Wood Street encampment over there in Oakland. And then coming up, we've got a high profile event that's supposed to be happening in over at UC Berkeley. So our staffing is being stretched a little thin. So if you haven't been seeing, like, for example, if you haven't been seeing me out there doing my normal enforcement down there, that's why. But with these new officers joining in, that's going to help us out quite a bit. And maybe hopefully we can get back to where we were and where we should be as far as staffing levels. That's really all I've got. If there's any questions that I could field. Oh, I do want to make one quick little announcement. Typically, I'm the officer that works the West County. As of late, we've had some senior officers transfer into our office, and one of those senior officers does live in the area, so he's been kind of bumping me off my normal beat. But that being said, I'm still in contact with that officer, and if there are any complaints, typically there's things that I usually handle myself. But now that I'm not assigned to the West End beat on a normal basis, I can still forward that information to the officers that are working that area, and then if they're available, they can address any issues that do come up. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Officer Leviste from the council? If I don't see any questions, I have one. This pedestrian accident, where did it occur?
It was at Appian and Rincon, and it happened on the 7th. There was a vehicle versus pedestrian, but that's pretty much all I can give it, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions for Officer Leviste? Okay, if I don't see any questions, thank you so much for your presentation and for everything you do.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next month.
Okay, great. And now we'll move into the next presentation from County Fire, Mike Gorton. Mike, welcome.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, there was some audio technical difficulties with our iPad, so I had to switch to my cell phone. But thank you for having me tonight. I'm in place of Chief Thomas tonight. I'm a fire captain over at Contra Costa County Fire, serving El Sobrante and San Pablo. As far as El Sobrante itself, there were no significant fires or incidents these last few months here in El Sobrante itself. The crews from El Sobrante did help neighboring districts in Rodeo, Hercules, Pinole, and Richmond and San Pablo. As far as for the district itself, the fire district itself, I think like Edgar had mentioned earlier, the big news is that the board of directors unanimously approved the service agreement with City of Pinole, assuming fire and EMS services for the city on a regular scheduled basis. The next step in that process is submitting an application to LAFCO this week before their meeting on November 9th, so they can approve it. It looks like it should be approved by January 1st with a commencement date of March 1st, 2023. And March 1st, 2023, all Pinole Fire Department personnel will be offered con-fire positions, and the now closed Fire Station 74 would be open again. That's all based on the LAFCO approval, which should happen. As far as other parts around the fire district, we just started new fire academy. We have 32 new firefighters in that academy, which is our largest to date. It's a 20-week course designed to train new firefighters into becoming probationary firefighters and leaving the fire academy out into the companies and stations on February 15th of 2023. After that, we have plans of hiring another lateral academy, which that is different, where we put out a job offer for firefighters who are already working currently with other fire departments, for example, Vallejo, Fairfield, Oakland. We look for those type of firefighters that have experience. They come in and they have a shorter academy than the 20-week regular academy, and they go out into the fire stations. We're looking for that academy to start after the other one ends in the spring of 2023. As far as I said, big incidents earlier, we did send different engines out and overhead personnel to the big wildland fires up in Weed, California, and Placer and El Dorado counties. So we did help with the containment and extinguishment of those fires. Two things in the future. The district is working to identify consultants to conduct a coverage study to analyze current coverage and future needs for the communities over the next 20 years. So that information will be helpful in figuring out how many fire stations we need, how many apparatus we need, how many people we need in each of the stations. So that's going to be definitely helpful. And then also we have used some of the Measure X funding for wildland fire, weed abatement and such like that. So that about $2 million of those dollars went to fuel reduction programs and wildland fire assessment. Other than that, that is all we have for an update. If anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Any questions for Captain Gorton? Mickey.
Hi, yeah. I was just wondering, I saw a program where there were inmates.
You froze up, Mickey.
For wildfire,
Okay.
for their efforts. What's that? Can you hear me okay?
Now we can hear you, yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. I think my internet's a little unstable. But no, I was asking about, I saw a program of how there have been a lot of programs where inmates are used to help with the fighting fires, wildfires, and then they were often prevented from, once they're out of prison, to help out with those efforts. And I was wondering if there is a program where they are allowed to get employment, since they are experienced already, to join the fire departments.
That's a good question. So a little bit of history behind that. Yeah, most of the inmate fire crews were with the state, California or Cal Fire. They had different camps that were up and down through the state where they would have hand crews that would come in, and they were low-level inmates, and they would help with the extinguishment and putting out the fires, the large wildland fires. A few years ago, when they started to do the releasing lower inmates from the prison system, they couldn't staff those crews. So a lot of those crews have gone away. And what you see now is they have started to employ more National Guard crews and for that situation. And our own Confire hand crew is something that came from a situation like that. As far as hiring, I know when I used to work for Cal Fire, they used to hire. I knew a few people who used to be in that those Confire or those crews, the Cal Fire crews, and they would be hired at Cal Fire. I don't know the hiring practices of many departments around the Bay Area. I would imagine with that experience, they do have a tip in their cap in experience levels compared to other people who don't have experience. But then again, with a criminal record, they may have looked down on that. So I don't know about the hiring practices. I know at Confire, if somebody were to come through our interview system, they would be given a fair shot with experience and with a past record compared with everybody else, and the best candidate would come out of it. But as far as individual programs that specifically use or hire those specific people, I do not know of any. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's interesting. It seemed like, a good way for them to come out and have employment, which is often challenging for them. But the other question, I just wanted to make a comment. I noticed that there's a sign now on San Pablo Dam Road that shows the fire danger for that day. And that was kind of cool to see. And I was just wondering who keeps that up? I mean, is it looked at every day, or how is that managed?
That is news to me. I was unfamiliar with that that board going up, but I am familiar with that board. That board is used to let the citizens know of the fire danger, and hopefully, I'll backtrack here. All fires need a start. Something has to start the fire, whether it's man-made, whether it's weather like dry lightning or something. Everything does. And with those boards, we're hoping that when the public knows that it's such a high fire danger, that they will do less, for example, weed eating or mowing or something like that could kick up a rock and start a fire. As far as how the information is put out there, it's based on weather and like wind and temperature and what we call relative humidity and how dry everything is. But who updates that, I couldn't tell you. I can get back to you and let you know. But I know when we worked for CAL FIRE, we had one at our station, and we would do it daily based on the weather. So I'm assuming somebody does that, but who that is, I couldn't tell you, but I can get back to you.
Okay, it's not that important. I was just curious. But it's for people who don't know, it's on San Pablo Dam Road and Castro Ranch Road.
Okay, thank you for your question, Mickey. Pam has a question.
Yes, thank you. El Sobrante is kind of the flatlands and then the hillsides. And the evacuation routes for the hillsides are usually down some pretty narrow, pretty one lane windy roads. And my question is, if those roads are blocked by cars parking on the road in front of the house, but not just in front of the house on their own property, but on the road, who has the jurisdiction to make the cars move? I mean, I've spoken to, well, anyway, who has the jurisdiction? A fire guy was up here doing an analysis on defensible space, and he said we couldn't make it up here with those cars parked in the street the way they are. We would not even try. So who do I need to contact so that we can get a fire truck up here?
So we have two different departments. We have a fire prevention who go out and do building inspections and do, the defensible space inspections. And we also have our fire investigations department who are sworn in peace officers with the state of California. And then you have your operations or your local fire stations, fire engines, fire trucks. As far as us at a local fire station level, we have all we can do is recommend. We can ask politely, we can recommend, we could say, this is why we need you to move your vehicle. This is how important it is. With our fire prevention, they are people who can cite, they can give recommendations and say, like, you have 30 days to move your car, and they come back in and check. And then our fire investigations are, like I said, are sworn peace officers, and they have more say in how a person of the public, a citizen, needs to act, or if they would need to move their car. So I would say, starting with the Fire Prevention Bureau, our local Fire Prevention Bureau, they would be the best ones. They could go out there, like you said, they were out there doing a defensible space inspection. They would probably be the best people to go up and initiate that contact with the residents there about moving their car. And if after a certain amount of time that they've been asked to move those cars, they weren't compliant, then they might kick it to the fire investigations who would go in there. Or also, we could also at that point get the sheriff's department in there who could go in there and with a more stern voice tell them how important it is.
Is there a way, I understand what you're saying about the system. And then, the sheriff tells them to move it. They either move it and then they put it back. And the sheriffs have other things to do than keep coming back all the time. So this needs to be a permanent thing where you just don't do this. What do we have to do? Is it a law that we have to change? I mean, who's in charge of making up? I mean, it's just such a rational thing to do. If there's not space for a fire truck to come through, we need to make space, period. There needs to be signs, whatever. How do you do this?
I'm sorry, Pam. I think we can move this conversation along. I can follow up with you just for the sake of the time of the agenda. If it's okay, if I send you an email, we can discuss further.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Thank
I'll
you.
put my email on the chat, but we're gonna have to move along, Thomas, to the next.
Yeah,
item.
okay.
However, it is a super important question.
Go ahead, Sue. Yeah.
That is an incredibly important question because people in Paradise die because of that. And traffic crowding down roads is also a huge problem. So as part of our, have we got an evacuation plan that takes account of that? If cars do break down, who moves them? How does that whole thing happen? If we're in high fire season, do we have recommendations that people don't park along the streets of these narrow roads? That was a question to Mike, I guess.
Yes.
I say
Go ahead.
something about that? So I think this is a really good issue that we should talk about. We're actually dealing with this in Kensington, where there's been some discussion over whether to create no parking areas on certain routes. And what we have found is in Kensington is some neighborhoods don't want to give up their parking. And of course, obviously the response for the larger community would be people may have to give up their parking. So I think this deserves some discussion. And there's some trade-offs here, and it may be, the county, the CHP does traffic enforcement, the sheriff is involved. So we can look at what streets, where are there problems, and identify those streets. And to any of you should let Edgar know, we could go out with Public Works to identify where there are streets where there may be problems with fire engines going up or evacuations, and address that. And parking is not as tight in El Sobrante as it is in Kensington. And so it may be easier to get community support to try to create during the fire season some no parking areas. So let's take this up further. I think it's an important, longer discussion.
Okay, so maybe we can have something to just reach out by email to Pam and others who.
Yeah, well, I think we can
interested.
actually have this as an agenda item at a future meeting, but do some preliminary work ahead of time. I mean, I've been pushing for this in Kensington, and it's frustrating because we're reliant on the Kensington Police Department to do enforcement. And so we need them as a partner. I think if we got the sheriff or CHP to be our partners here, I think that's easier. We have, counties not related to Kensington Police Department. And if they won't enforce any resolutions we pass on traffic control, it doesn't do any good to pass them. So, and when the residents complain to the police department that they don't want to give up parking, it affects how the police department views it. So I think we should have a discussion, and it's a longer discussion, and we can, if anyone wants to identify some streets that you think are problems, please pass that on to Edgar.
Okay. So with that, if there are no further questions for Captain Gorton, we can move on to our next agenda item. So if there are no further points to be raised, I think, John, you wanted to make a quick, say a few words before we went into the Public Works presentation.
I did. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry I can't be with you. I'm actually at a dinner meeting for my role with the California State Association of Counties, but I have seen this presentation, and I will watch and hear your reactions afterwards. But I wanted to make some comments. So there's been the county retained a traffic consultant to do a study to look at the issue of what is called a road diet along San Pablo Dam Road between Castro Ranch Road and Appian Way, or for parts of it. The idea was to explore the issue of creating a bike lane, and there's been a lot of interest in that, that is safe, a dedicated bike lane between Castro Ranch Road and somewhere before you get to Appian Way, not through the downtown. And so the traffic study looked at what would be involved from a traffic standpoint to eliminate one lane of traffic in each direction, and you'll hear more detail from Public Works, and to create a bike lane. And the traffic consultant made a recommendation for part of this. And so tonight, I want to be clear, tonight is not a decision night. It's not, in fact, the purpose is more just to present the study, get questions, hear any initial feedback, get questions from all of you. Is there other information that you want to get? And what we would organize is a larger community meeting, separate from the MAC, probably, that is a meeting to really discuss this issue in the larger community. And we asked the traffic consultant to make sure they looked at, how many more minutes would it take to get through that stretch of the dam road during the AM and PM peak hours? Because there's really no change during most of the day. There are some changes between the AM and PM peak hour, and they measured that at from various segments of the road. So that's all I wanted to say, is this is not meant to be any final discussion or decision, but to be a first analysis, a first presentation, and hear your input about other information you may want to see. And if we decided to pursue this further, it would involve a resolution of the Board of Supervisors, as well as then identifying what the funding would be to implement it. So we're at the early point of this process, and I appreciate Public Works, putting this study together. The full study is available, and make sure everybody gets it. So those were the comments I wanted to make, and that's all. And I will.
I'm like,
the results of
you're about to dial like random stuff.
Okay, that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. So let's launch into the road diet study.
Floor mine. Edgar, could you allow me to share my screen if possible?
Yes.
All right, there we go.
All right. And close this.
Great. Let's see. How does that look?
Looks good.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Members of the public. My name is Jeff Valeros. I am a senior civil engineer with Contra Costa County Public Works in our Transportation Engineering Division. And as Supervisor Joy mentioned, I'm here to present the San Pablo Dam Road Diet Feasibility Study. Just a bit of an overview, go over the introduction, a little bit about the study, give you some background information, some context about San Pablo Dam Road from a transportation perspective, talk a little bit about the road diet feasibility study in itself, and then the next steps, and open up with any Q&A and open discussion. So the purpose of this study was to determine the feasibility of installing bike lanes on San Pablo Dam Road by implementing a road diet. I'll define that a little bit more in later slides. Supervisor Joe had mentioned that already. The goal of installing bike lanes is to enhance safety, mobility, and access for all road users and create a complete streets environment. By definition, the term complete streets means a road that is built out to serve many users, that is bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit users, and not just vehicular travel. This road diet feasibility study began in late 2019, but was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so the purpose of tonight's presentation is to just present the findings of the study by the traffic consultant and recommended alternative and obtain community feedback. I do want to clarify again or emphasize that this study doesn't necessarily commit the county to pursue a road diet immediately at this moment. We do want to build a project that is supported by the MAC and the community. So some background information, San Pablo Dam Road is a major arterial road and a route of regional significance. Arterial roads, by context, move high volumes of traffic to and from freeways, in this particular case between Highway 24 and I-80. And their function is of regional, countywide, and intercity importance for motorists and bicyclists alike, rather than simply serving local area traffic. Routes of regional significance are, in general, roads that provide links between major hubs of the county, in this case between West and Central Contra Costa County, and may also serve as links across counties. So what is exactly a road diet? A road diet typically involves converting an existing 4-lane undivided roadway to a 3-lane roadway consisting of 2 through lanes and a center 2-way left turn lane. You can kind of see the before and after here in the bottom in the illustration. Road diet or roadway reconfiguration may provide the following benefits: improve safety, calm traffic speeds, and provide better mobility and access for non-automobile road users. And so in this particular context of San Pablo Dam Road, by removing that travel lane, we have enough room on the shoulders to install bike lanes, and even better at times, buffered bike lanes. However, it should be noted that an in-depth analysis and engineering discretion is needed when considering road diets on roads with more than 20,000 vehicles per day, as there is potential for increased traffic congestion. Here is just a quick illustration, a typical cross-section of San Pablo Dam Road. I do acknowledge that San Pablo Dam Road has varying characteristics along the corridor, but this is simply just for illustrative purposes only. What we have here is a 5-foot sidewalk, 8-foot parking lane, the 2 12-foot travel lanes in each direction, and then the same thing on the other side. And so by implementing a road diet, what we can do with that extra roadway width by reducing a lane, we'd be able to keep the sidewalk, not have impacts to parking, have a buffer for the bike lane. Personally, I prefer the buffer between the motorists and the bicyclists, and then have the 2-way center left turn lane for those entering and exiting their driveways and homes. Road diets and calming traffic speeds. This slide just has a bit more information on the technical side, but I think it's one of importance about calming speeds. Vehicle speeds should be matched to the context of surrounding land uses, such as through central business districts and neighborhoods, and to all road users. Sometimes that means that lower speeds are more desirable. These areas often have higher pedestrian and bicycle volumes in addition to younger pedestrians and bicyclists. The need to calm or reduce vehicle speeds is often cited for road diet conversions. Cited from the Federal Highway Administration, studies have shown that implementation of a road diet leads to a reduction in the 85th percentile speed, which is pretty much most road users, to a speed of less than 5 miles per hour. Another study has also reported a 7% reduction in vehicles traveling over the posted speed limit. And so just now jump into the study. Some of the study parameters, again, the purpose was simply just to determine the feasibility of installing these bike lanes by implementing this road diet. 3 miles of San Pablo Dam Road were analyzed from El Portal Drive to Castro Ranch Road. The considerations from a transportation traffic perspective include peak hour traffic congestion, collision history, and that change in travel time, the induced delay, should we implement one of these alternatives, which I'll get into more detail later on. 2 alternatives were explored. One, alternative A, was a road diet between Appian Way and Castro Ranch Road for along that 2.4 mile segment. The other one we wanted to look at was also the road diet between May Road and Castro Ranch Road for about 1.6 miles. 3 timeframe scenarios were considered. One were pre-pandemic conditions in 2019 when this started, near-term conditions in 2025, as well as future conditions in 2040, which is kind of consistent with our general plan. In relationship to plans and programs that are currently existing, the county does have plenty. We have listed our general plan, which maintains our level of service standards for congestion. We also have our active transportation plan, which was recently adopted by our Board of Supervisors, which provides an outline of where the county should prioritize bike and ped improvements. We have our Vision Zero plan listed next, which aims to reduce fatal and severe collisions along our county roadways, get down to 0 deaths. We also have our Complete Streets policy, as well as our climate action plan for greenhouse gas reductions. On the more regional level, we have our Contra Costa Transportation Authority's Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, which maps out our entire network, both in unincorporated and incorporated county. And then the West Contra Costa Transportation Advisory Committee, or WCTAC, as many may know as, and they have the West County Action Plan. I do want to bring up the fact that of the 3 plans that have asterisks in them, that these plans have identified the need for bicycle infrastructure along San Pablo Dam Road. So the existing conditions along San Pablo Dam Road, we're seeing about an average daily traffic of around 11,000 to 31,000 vehicles on a typical weekday. That higher number is as you get closer to the downtown core, and the further you move eastward towards Castro Ranch Road, those numbers start to decline down to that 11,000. We have 2 travel lanes in each direction with intermittent parking and pedestrian facilities, for example, sidewalks and crosswalks. There is no direct or parallel alternative route to San Pablo Dam Road for what it serves, and I think that's an important part of this traffic model and how the time delay was produced. We have a speed limit that varies between 25 and 45 miles per hour. And current bicycle usage that the county has seen is typically observed throughout the week, but heavier on the weekends. And on that photo on the bottom right, apologize for it being small. We had county staff even seeing this mother and son ride on about 2 months ago along the shoulder. Here's just a quick snapshot of the existing bicycle infrastructure that we have in the El Sobrante community. So the study area we have here in red, as well as the existing bike lanes shown here in green. And then, of course, further east, as many may know, towards the reservoir, we also have facilities out there. So to get into the alternatives, the first alternative A for road diet from Appian Way to Castro Ranch Road. The segment length was 2.4 miles. Putting bike lanes along this segment would provide a connection between the existing infrastructure on Appian Way and Castro Ranch Road. But I think the important thing that the community is grasp onto and is tangible is about that increase in travel time by following through with these alternatives. So that automobile travel time between Appian Way and Castro Ranch Road, we're looking at in 2025 conditions through the traffic model will increase in the peak time as follows, and they're emboldened throughout the next 2 slides. In the AM peak, we have an increase in the westbound direction of about 2 minutes, 52 seconds, and then the eastbound 1 minute, 56. In that PM peak from 4 to 6 PM, westbound, we're looking at 2:16, eastbound 16 seconds. And then for the future term in 2040, for the westbound AM peak, we have an increase of about 4 minutes, and then eastbound 1 minute, 41 seconds. And then the PM peak, westbound 4:25 and 37 seconds. I do want to bring up an important note that parking, should any of these alternatives move forward, parking would not be impacted by this. The total project cost of this is about 3.1 million. For alternative B, the road diet for the shorter segment between May Road and Castro Ranch Road, this segment length is 1.6 miles, and the increase in travel time, in this case, for the AM peak, we're looking at 12 seconds westbound, 1:20 eastbound, PM peak 1:48, 2 seconds. And then in the future 2040 conditions, we have 56 seconds westbound, about 1 minute in the east in the AM peak, and then 3:37 westbound and 6 seconds in the east. I promise that's the last of the numbers I'll be spewing out tonight. Again, parking would not be impacted by this alternative, and the project cost for this would be about 2.5 million. So ultimately, the recommendation that's shown in the study by a traffic consultant would be to move forward with alternative B. And the reason for this is due to the nominal projected increases in travel time, vehicular delay and queuing of the vehicles at the intersections in at 2025 conditions. And also in the same criteria metrics, more manageable increases in the 2040 conditions. This would move us forward and improve local bicycle circulation between May Road and Castro Ranch Road. And there could be expected traffic calming due to bike lane reduction. Additionally, by moving forward with alternative B, this doesn't necessarily preclude further, if the community desires, further bike lanes between May Road and Appian Way. So the next further steps for the guidance of the El Sobrante MAC would be we could conduct further community engagement and seek input, whether that's through additional meetings or we can go the online and paper survey route if needed. And it's supported by the community ultimately, and we move forward, the county public works staff would look for grant funding to install this road diet, or we could potentially wait to implement during the next road surface treatment, which would be roughly about 7 to 8 years from now. And so with that, that's the end of my presentation. Open for any questions and open discussion.
Okay, so thank you. That was an excellent
Got
presentation,
a
very
room full of
detailed.
questions here, Tom.
Okay.
Excuse me?
You have a room full, everyone, the members in the room have their hands up.
Okay, so we'll start off with the council members, and I'd just like to give the first comment and question. So just an overall comment, that was an excellent presentation, very informative and detailed. And kind of my overall take with respect to alternative B is that, as you point out, it has a relatively minimal effect on kind of the inconvenience of drivers who are doing the commute down the dam road, but is beneficial to residents who live along the road because of the because of the calming effect on the traffic, and also obviously the benefit to cyclists of having this ability to cycle along the road with much improved safety. So, it has those positives. So I have one question, being somebody who's naive about these types of studies, and that is, I feel like these designs sort of look at conditions of relatively smoothly flowing average traffic, but with some degree of frequency, there are situations where there are accidents and other things that might close down a lane, slow traffic down, where I'm wondering what the impact would be if we narrow down the lanes and reduce the flow of traffic for this alternative B. Would that effect be sort of catastrophic as opposed to inconvenient now? Do you understand my question?
Oh, I think I do. I'll try to answer as best as I can.
Okay.
I mean, my observation, I've encountered collisions along these roads with two-way left turn lanes. When there's enforcement that comes out to the scene, there could be just diversion, and you can temporarily use that two-way left turn lane for that through traffic if that collision is on one particular side of the road. Is that your question regarding just how to navigate if there was a collision?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of sort of those events that really slow down traffic. If the impact of sort of closing down the road and reducing traffic flow would result in sort of catastrophic delays, and if that's something that you've seen with this type of thing.
I don't have an immediate answer for that at the moment, Thomas.
Okay,
So, yeah.
just something that came to mind.
Okay.
But overall, I feel like this alternative B that you pointed out has, substantial benefits with what seem to be fairly limited costs to drivers. So with my question and comment over with, we'll go to the council members, and we'll start off with George.
Okay, thank you. This stretch that's being proposed, it's entirely unincorporated and doesn't have to go through Richmond at all. The reason I ask is you look at the map, and one of the streets that comes off in that lane is Bristlecone, and that's in Richmond. So I was just curious if this needs any input from the city of Richmond, if this goes forth.
There's a small segment, I believe, that does cut through City of Richmond, and I would work directly with the City of Richmond.
Okay.
Just move forward, and I see Patrick Phelan raising his hand. I'd work with him.
All right, that's good. Now, it's sort of related to what Thomas was saying in the sense of traffic. And as we know locally, and maybe Jeff, you've traveled Dam Road, you know that it turns into a bit of a speedway a lot of times. And, the traffic calming thing is good, but I think if this is going to go forward, there is the signage that you have as you're going eastbound on when you get past, as you're getting towards the athletic club and the lanes shrink 2 to 1, you've got the signage. But that signage, I think needs to be improved. It needs to have it needs to be encased in like flashing lights or something, because, people who aren't necessarily familiar with it, if this goes through, the traffic calming is good, but there is a concern that it could lead to accidents. I like the idea of slimming the road, and I really like the center turn lane, especially on the stretch where all the condominiums and apartments are a lot, because it's densely populated there. And I used to have a friend who lived in one of the condo complexes on Creekside Court, and I was always, it was somewhat irrational, but I was always terrified that I'd be waiting to make the left turn and there'd be somebody behind me who wasn't paying attention and didn't have the sensors in the car to say, brake now, and I'd get rear-ended. It was irrational, but no, it was a fear. But having the turn lane in there, in that section, I think would be an excellent benefit, because you're out of the flow of traffic, and you can just make that turn into your complex, going home even, and not necessarily feel that fear in the back of your mind that you could be victim of a car accident. So that's a good thing. But another thing that relates to this, if we're going to have, we've had issues brought up repeatedly at the meeting about the speeding on Dam Road, and if this goes through, that 2-lane section where people still fly, and they can fly if they don't hit any traffic lights or anything like that, it needs to be perhaps working in conjunction with CHP to do some serious enforcement of the speed limit as well, because otherwise it's going to be, well, it could be messy. But in general, I think it's a great idea. And it's also wonderful because it encourages exercise, it encourages people to get out of their cars. And also it tells people, you know what, we're putting this in here, we're trying to make it safe for you, so you have some space between some of the people who don't pay quite as much attention to driving as they should. So there's less of a chance that you'll get smacked. So I think it's a good thing overall.
Thank you, George. And for future comments, let's try and keep our comments for less than 2 minutes or less. So just to keep the discussion moving along. So Mickey, your hand was up.
Can I give a quick comment real quick?
Sure.
To George. George,
Sure.
I just wanted to validate your concerns. I think I didn't talk about the improved safety, but one of the reductions in collisions would be those rear ends. So making that left turn and having a car behind you, there are rear ends that would be mitigated through that. I should note, though, what's tricky about San Pablo Dam Road is that we have about 200 driveways along this roadway segment. So that's just a consideration. There's a potential for maybe even potential head-on collision because you're both trying to make those left turns into your home. So these are just a lot of the factors that our traffic consultant has had to consider before making the recommendation.
Okay. Mickey?
Okay, so I live off of La Honda Road, and I can see, I also am often terrified that somebody's going to rear end me. But on the other hand, when I drive on Appian Way by the post office, where there is a lane like that where people can turn left or left from there, I've seen that lane being used as a to get around everybody and drive really quickly, really fast, as a passing lane practically. And that's also terrifying. But actually, one of my question really is how many cyclists do you expect to be using this lane if we're going to be making this big change? I just want to have an idea of an estimate of are we expecting a lot of cyclists? Is it only, like not that many? And in which case is it worth making that change? So I'm kind of curious about how many cyclists are estimated to be using it.
We can, on our end in Public Works, within our capability, we can do pre and post project counts by just putting a camera out there and looking at what the current conditions are and then go afterwards. With regards to projections, I unfortunately don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not quite sure how many bicyclists would end up using it, but there is enough studies to show that by putting in infrastructure that makes it more comfortable, you will get more ridership.
Okay,
I just want to make sure it's worth it. That's it.
all right.
Understood.
Thank you. Are there further questions from the council?
We have 3 here.
Everybody in
Okay.
the room, Thomas.
Okay, couple of comments. I actually prefer, what was it, Plan A, Alternative A, all the way. But has there been, I didn't see any comments about how much reduction in accidents that you would expect in this calming. Was that any part of the study at all? And then as another comment, at a previous presentation of this, there was talk about doing a pilot study on a small section of it and putting this in. And those are my 3.
I'll have to look back at the notes. I'm unfamiliar with the pilot study. I'll be honest, I had acquired this in about 2020. Not saying it didn't happen, but I'll have to take a look at that, get back to you. I'll work with Edgar, that response. In regards to, okay, if you can, I apologize, you had another comment or a question, if you could repeat that.
The other question was, what was?
Oh, I remember now. Sorry, my apologies. It was about collisions, and so
Yeah.
there was a first phase that did discuss reduction in collisions, potential reduction in collisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it. Do you have the numbers anywhere? Or?
I don't have that readily available.
Okay.
I'll share that in the future. I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, Edgar, are there further hands in the room?
Shirley?
Shirley.
Okay,
Well, first, I want to compliment you on traffic calming.
Yeah.
Because we certainly need it here. However, I was really concerned about collision history, because there isn't a left turn lane in the area, so we do need some left turn lanes. And I don't know if you're aware of it, but we're getting new housing in the area. Quite a bit of housing is going to be built in the area. In fact, there's going to be 8 units built in a little shopping center nearby. On El Portal Drive, near Road 20, there's going to be like 64 units built. So there's going to be a lot of people turning left going to their homes. So I think we should have a study or history of collision prevention.
Yeah, and my predecessor, Mary Halley, who happily retired, I think she gave the last presentation that talked about the collision history, and so I don't want to mince or misinterpret. There was a discussion on that, and one thing that we would take a look at is how many of those collisions are actually rear ends, because I think that goes into that characteristics of that fear of getting rear-ended, and then as well as how many broadsides, people making a left turn and getting struck by vehicles. Those are the things that we'll take a look at.
Or even people being hit by cars crossing. So
Yeah.
yes, we do need traffic calming.
thank you. Thank you, Shirley. Are there further, Edgar, are there further
Sue?
hands raised in the room?
Yes, Sue.
So I'm very interested to know, we want to have low carbon, right? And so we want to actually encourage people to use electric and semi-electric bikes. They're a big thing, lots of sales of those at the peddler and other bike shop in El Sobrante and across the country. So are these areas going to help to actually funnel people into using bicycles instead of cars? Because that's really where we want to go with this. Is it long enough to have just that short section to make it worthwhile? Or are we, I mean, really what I think we're doing is funneling residents of El Sobrante onto San Pablo Dam Road to get to Orinda, to the La Morinda area, on bicycles? Is that the main traffic? Where are the bicyclists coming from? Have they done studies of how useful will this actually be for cyclists? Because frankly, without the middle of El Sobrante being also included, I question if it's useful having just a short section of road done. Do we know the answers to that?
When you mention the middle, are you talking more in the downtown area, or are we
I'm
talking?
talking about the downtown area, right? Because that is the total terror fest to go to ride. I mean, I actually ride on the sidewalk if I have to go through the middle of El Sobrante.
Yeah. There's been a bit of history and work back and forth with the Chamber of Commerce about regarding support for bike lanes. And I'm going to look at my division manager, Jerry, if you can maybe add to that. This was before my time, but I know that this was discussed before.
Yeah, this is Jerry Fay. I'm with Public Works as well. And yeah, just what Jeff said, we worked with the downtown businesses and the chamber years ago, and there was no desire for bike lanes through that section. So we kind of omitted it from this part of the study.
To the people from East Bay, Bike East Bay, for example, and do you have some sense, has there been, you've got a hand up, maybe you could tell us a bit about.
So we'll go to the other, the non-council members after the council members have finished with their questions. So we can hear from Bike East Bay as well. Are there further questions or comments from council members? Okay, then Pam Morris had her hand up first. Pam, if you can keep it 2 minutes or less.
No problem. So I agree with Sue that we need to consider alternatives to gasoline, but bikes might not be the best alternative. It might be electric cars. So if we're talking about the traffic on that street, a lot of the traffic is going to the airport. It's a back way to the airport. And I've never seen a bicycle on that section of that area at all. And if there's 11,000 to 35,000 cars counted going through that section, we're weighing, oh, let's make everybody have something for themselves. Let's include the bicycles equally. Well, there aren't 11,000 bicyclists. So why are we spending $3 million for 50 people when it's not even being used, and it's going to really impede the ability to move in a flow way that's going to be more and more traffic going the back way to the airport over time. Why can't we put a traffic light in to slow things down? Why can't we put speed bumps to slow things down? Why can't we put street lights to also slow things down? In other words, the slowing down seems like a really good idea, but taking it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes doesn't seem like maybe the best way to do that. That's the crux of what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, if you want to give an initial response.
No, I hear your concerns about wanting to reduce speeds and issues with that. I think speed bumps, I can just immediately give that response. Because this is an arterial road and route of regional significance, speed humps or bumps are typically reserved on more local roads. That'd be concerning at that particular speed, using those and that amount of throughput of traffic. And then that's I think that's the immediate response I have, Tom. So I'm not sure of the rest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, what we can do is we have 2 people from Bike East Bay who would like to comment. So we'll start with Dave Campbell, and then we'll move to Robert Prince.
Good evening, everyone. Dave Campbell with Bike East Bay, and I've been involved in this project now ever since the county repaved the road. Jeff or Jerry, I don't know if it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we have 3 bicycle plans in the area that say this should be a safe street to bike on. And that was the impetus for discussions of how to make this street safer. We also have many plans since then, climate action plans, Vision Zero plans, and just general commitment to make neighborhoods safe and streets like this safe. And how do we do that? And so this isn't just a bike lane project. This is a street safety project. And I appreciate the council's support for traffic calming to make this street safe to walk across. If you live on one side and you're going to the other side to visit a neighbor or to go to the store, this is a traffic safety project. If you drive this street with the road diet as staff is proposing, it's going to be safer for you to drive this street all around. So the win-win here is when you make a street safer like this, you do have space for a bike lane, and you can make it safer for bicycling too. The question of why are we stopping at May? Good question. Sure, Bike East Bay wants to take a bike safety project all the way west until we can connect to the bike lane project that the city of San Pablo is doing at the very other end of the street. That's what we want. That's what the plans say to do. What we know is we don't own magic wands, and we can't just change streets magically the whole way. So we get what we can. And so when the county repaved this street, they didn't do anything, even though we had 3 plans that say, let's make this street safer for walking and biking. So we've been working, doing follow-up traffic studies, as you've seen tonight, the results of, and we know we can get to May and only add seconds to drivers who are cutting through from Orinda on their commute. And we see that as a minimal impact and a significant step forward, while also making this street much safer for everybody who walks and drives and lives there. If you ask me where would you take it to, I'd go to Appian, and then I'd continue it on through the business district, connecting to San Pablo. But it's not up for me to say. I think it really is up for the community to say, how much do we want a safe street? And how much are we willing to slow down people who cut through from Orinda? And so I think this is a good step forward, and thank you for your support.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And we'll move to Robert Prince.
Hey folks, thanks for calling on me. This is Robert Prince. I've been with Bike East Bay for a while as education director, and I'm moving over to the advocacy position, taking over for Dave later this year. But for my advocacy director position, we operate a lot of bike safety classes for free throughout the community. And the number one reason that people give us almost unanimously for why they don't bike more is concerns over safety. And a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure that we can provide. I want to second Dave about road diet impacts on street safety for all users, not only for bike riders, even though this might be perceived primarily as a bike lane project, it might actually end up having the biggest impacts on safety for pedestrians. And that's a real issue here on San Pablo Dam Road. I think the most recent fatality wasn't a bike fatality. It was last year. A pedestrian was killed pretty close to May Road by a driver on San Pablo Dam while they were trying to cross. Having it narrowed down to 1 lane each direction makes a big difference, because it means a pedestrian crossing only has to navigate 1 lane of car traffic in each direction. And it's been shown to have a significant impact on safety as a result. With regards to getting people out there biking, we actually have to think about this in terms of a network. And different types of facilities have different stress levels associated with them. If we can get a bike lane on this street, that will reduce the stress level for the street. But if you can't connect it to another type of facility, like the bike lane over on Appian, then you're not really creating a network, and that's not really going to encourage that many people who are biking who aren't out there already. It might create a safer condition for the people who are out there, but if we want to get more people biking, you have to think about those network connections. So thanks for hearing me out, and I also want to see some kind of project move forward. It'll have a big impact on safety no matter what, and we'll keep working on it either way. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And we have a question or comment from Will Flute.
Yeah, is my mic working?
Yep.
Oh, great. I didn't think it was. I live out by Castro Ranch Road. I actually live in Richmond, and I'm a regular bike rider. And I know a few people have asked how many people are actually using the dam road. And I can tell you, from my point of view as a bike rider, I try to stay away from it as much as possible, because the current condition for a bike rider is you're wedged between a freeway and parked cars with no space at all. So I will go out towards Pinole. I will go on Appian, which is not great, but better. But I think the reason you don't see bike riders on that stretch of the road is just because it's very, very hazardous. And I agree with what Dave was saying for Bike East Bay. You know, it would be great. The really great solution to this would be to go all the way to Appian, because you do have bike lane possibilities to connect to there. But anything's an improvement. So, you know, option B is better than nothing, but it'd be great to do the whole thing. But again, we have to see what the community has to say. In general, it has to be acceptable to everyone. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah.
You have one comment here, Tom.
Okay.
It's more of a question than a comment. In Oakland and San Francisco, I've seen a slightly different orientation of parking and bike lane, where you have in your configuration, instead of having sidewalk, parking, bike lane, you have sidewalk, bike lane, and parking. Did you look at that? Was that a configuration you looked at and rejected, or that was something you hadn't considered?
Thanks for the question. That was a consideration. I think one of the tricky things about this particular corridor is that we have, again, those 200 driveways and also high moving vehicles at that speed. Those sections that I've seen in Oakland, I think we're dealing with a little slower speeds and a little more room to play with. So that safety was also a consideration.
Thank you.
Jerry, I'm not sure if you had anything to add to that.
No, that's perfect. And then I think just also we don't have consistent curb gutter sidewalk out there either. So we'd have edge of pavement rather than a curb face.
Okay. Thank you. Are there further questions for Jeff? Okay, if there are no further questions, I want to thank Jeff for his presentation and thank everybody for the discussions. I'm sure we'll be following this up. You know, the goal of this was just to get initial impressions and sort of see what themes come up. Since we are running close to 9 p.m., so it's 8:40, and we still have Patrick Felon's presentation. I'd like to move to Patrick so that we have time for him and for any questions that his presentation raises. So if no one objects, I'd like to encourage Patrick to start.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks everyone for having me. My name is Patrick Phelan. I work in the Public Works Department at the City of Richmond. I actually work on a lot of bike ped projects. And I'm working on the Travel Safe Richmond effort right now. I was wondering if I can, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is going to be really quick. I just wanted to mention that this is a project that kind of overlaps a lot with what we were just talking about, called Travel Safe Richmond. There's two components of it. One of them is complete. It's the local roadway safety plan. I'm not sure if the county is also working on something like this, but it did a deep dive on the collision history on the major roads in Richmond and come up with a plan for lots of safety improvements, especially on high injury networks. We're also working on a bicycle and pedestrian action plan. And that one is still under development, and we will be having one more community meeting, I believe, on November 9th. And I know that most of you, of course, don't live in Richmond, but you know, Richmond and county roads, there's a lot of connectivity. So I thought you might be interested in that. And then also, I also work on creek and watershed projects. And so I wanted to share with the group this project that we will be constructing next year called Reducing Flood Risk in the Ream Creek Watershed. This is a bit outside of your area, but it's mainly going to be helping out the Rollingwood unincorporated neighborhood, which is north of El Portal Drive. Rain Creek comes through the north side of that area, and it floods, and it's a big hazard and problem for the neighborhood. So we're really excited that we got an almost $1.6 million grant from the Natural Resources Agency, and I just wanted to make sure that the county communities are aware of this. And I will put all of these. This is also a little press release we put out, and I'll put all these links in the chat. But just wanted to mention the Travel Safe Richmond program and the Rain Creek flooding mitigation project.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Patrick?
You have one in here?
Yes, we have one here.
Okay, go ahead. Who has the question?
It's Sue Boudreau.
Okay, Sue, go ahead.
Is there any plan to link up El Sobrante with the Bay Trail? Because it is almost impossible to get there at the moment, and it would be a great benefit to our community to have that go through the middle of Richmond safely.
I don't know of a specific plan for that, but like Bike East Bay mentioned, the goal is to have a network, and that would probably have to include the county, the city of San Pablo, and the city of Richmond to make all of those connections. But connecting people to the Bay Trail is definitely a priority for the city of Richmond, and I think for most of these planning efforts. I do know that it's probably a long ways away, but the Wildcat Creek Trail is something that various agencies are working on, and that would run from almost El Sobrante through Richmond and North Richmond to get out to the Bay Trail.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions for Patrick?
I see.
Okay, I don't see any hands up.
Mine is.
Oh, I'm
Mine is.
sorry.
Yeah, hi, Will Pluto again. I just wanted to say it's great to see Patrick here from the city, and I'm really hoping with the general issue of bike lanes that the city and the county can work more together. Like right now out on Castro Ranch Road, you have this great bike lane section that's been built by the city, and it connects to the dam road, and in either direction you really don't have bike lanes, especially towards El Sobrante, but also towards Orinda. It's not really a great connection. It's sort of out there by itself. So coordinating what the city is doing in the county, I hope we can do more of that. And related to that, just quick comment, I think last maybe November, Supervisor Joya mentioned that the El Sobrante MAC could have a representative from Richmond that's in the El Sobrante area. And I know that wasn't going to happen immediately, but I'd like to just mention it to the council that I'm hoping that's something that's kind of on the agenda to eventually happen, because I think coordination between Richmond and El Sobrante would really help in this case and a lot of other issues too.
Yeah, and I would encourage, if anyone's interested in walking and biking issues in Richmond and the surrounding area, you're welcome to attend a Richmond BPAC Bike Ped Advisory Committee meeting. They're on the second Monday of each month. This month, it's actually a week later because of the Indigenous Peoples Day holiday. So our next meeting's on Monday, and I put the link to the group's website in the chat.
Thank you. Further questions? Edgar, let me know if there's something in the room because I can't see very well. If there are no further questions for Patrick, in that case, I'd like to thank you, Patrick, and Jeff, and all of our presenters for a very interesting meeting.
Thank you, Patrick.
And we can move on to the next items in our agenda. Okay, so thanks again to our speakers, and we'll move to, there were no discussion items. Are there information items by MAC members and subcommittee reports? Mickey, you could give that if you have one to give, but any information items for MAC members? Then I'll take that as a no. Mickey, would you like to talk about the subcommittee?
Wait, there was one here.
Yeah.
One information in the audience.
Okay.
Mine's not necessary information. I just have a question. Could this library, could they post our agenda as soon as it comes out on the community bulletin board there in the library?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean-
we used to do that prior to COVID. We would have it posted. I remember I used to do it when I was the chair of the MAC back in the day. And so we would post it there. And now that we're having the meetings in person, we probably should do it again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it should be posted right now. As soon as I finish the agenda, I send it over to Tom, and then he told me he posted it. I haven't checked, but it should be there.
How far in advance are you posting it? Is it like,
So I usually try to get the agenda finalized at least a week before.
okay, so
Yeah.
I usually count like in the middle of the week, and maybe a couple other people, and I don't see them. And my computer's not always working. I can't, I'm looking at a screen, it's really bothering me. My eyes burn looking at the screen.
So if we could move to the subcommittee report. Mickey?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the Cleanup and Beautification Subcommittee, the newly named. We had a successful coastal cleanup day that the El Sobrante 94803 Green Team and spawners collaborated once again to have a big cleanup area wide. We filled a 40 cubic yard dumpster, and we had the help of also the support and help of SOS Richmond, who went around the town and picked up the bags and big things, and also made an outreach to the homeless encampments in the area, dropped them off trash bags, and then brought them back full. So overall, it was a successful day, and we'd like to thank our Starbucks and Neighbors Donuts and Chicago Pizza with a Twist, who donated food to feed our volunteers, and also to Dynamite Dave and the Detonators, who played a wonderful set of music following. But thank you to all the volunteers who took part in that day. And also a shout out to our green team. We won the outstanding spirit in the strolls parade this year, and we had a lot of spirit there. It was really fun, and tried to make an outreach. Unfortunately, it was raining that day, so the turnout wasn't quite as fantastic as we were hoping, but overall it was a really nice stroll and we enjoyed it, and it didn't rain the whole time, so that was really fun. But we do have a new postcard that we are distributing about our third Saturday cleanups, and the next one is this Saturday, October 15th from 10 till noon, meeting up at the El Sobrante Library, where we will loan out equipment once again and encourage people to pick out an area that's needs some attention. And there's lots of places that I've noticed along San Pablo Dam Road that I think we'll be focusing on this time. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. So I encourage all the people who's listening to this to please join us. We could use more volunteers to support. We've got a great core group, but we can always use more people. So the other thing is we're working on having I'm going to work with Edgar to pick out a date for a committee meeting, and actually we could concentrate not only on what we're doing now, but how we want to improve our outreach to the community, to get more participation from different groups as well, and to make sure we get a good, quick response to the dumps that are happening around town and the litter. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Join us Saturday, October 15th, 10 o'clock, library. See you there.
Thank you, Mickey. So any questions, comments for Mickey? If I don't see any further comment, again, thank you for all that wonderful work you and your collaborators are doing. And we can now move to future agenda items. We've got Will Nelson presenting for a future MAC meeting. Edgar, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So thank you, Thomas. So in November, we're going to have Will Nelson from the Contra Costa Department of Conservation and Development do the presentation. And I mentioned this kind of on the county reports, and John did as well, present on the 2040 general plan. And I think I sent out an email to the MAC members just asking what would you like to see in El Sobrante, thinking in the future, what do you think the community needs, the neighborhood needs, just where we can have a list that we can share with Will, where you can possibly provide some points on how the general plan is going to address those needs. So we have him scheduled to present in November. He's going to present everything that has to do with economic development, sustainability, equity, and the vision for El Sobrante in terms of what the county is looking at for 2040. Okay. That's going to be in November, just to reiterate it.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. So I guess what we can do is to finish up our meeting. We'll go to the public comment section. So these are just any discussion on any items not on the agenda. And so I see George has his hand up.
Actually, my comment wasn't about public comment. It was about the future items, because it would be helpful to ask if there are other things that we might want to schedule. I have one in mind. My agency hasn't been here in a while. Maybe they can talk about that MOU that was discussed earlier, because I don't know anything about it. So that would be helpful. And also, I noticed, and it struck me at the stroll, whatever, and maybe this is something that Tom Owens can answer. Whatever happened to the zoning and planning subcommittee that used to come to the MAC every month and give a report? Did that committee just disappear, or they just don't come to the meetings anymore? Because they used to be a monthly thing.
It's been in hiatus since the COVID.
Okay.
And
all right.
There's talk about trying to get it fired up again.
Okay, because once that comes, then they should be put on the agenda, because that was a monthly thing. So that's all. But now, since we're segueing into public comment, because I want to talk about that too, Edgar, can you please work with the supervisor's office to find $300 in the budget to buy a blankety blank canopy and a canopy, so that y'all can participate in the stroll? Covered canopy.
George,
because...
as soon as I left, I was like, John, we need a canopy.
Yeah.
He's like, we don't have one. I was like, no, we do not.
Yeah. For those who don't know what we're talking about.
It was ordered already.
Yeah.
We ordered it already.
Yeah. The supervisor's office was unable to participate.
Thank you for all your help.
Because they didn't have a covered canopy, which was actually, and it was a necessity. It's always a necessity, regardless of the weather. Whether it was raining and windy like it was for the stroll. And it was actually nice to go to the stroll and meet my fellow MAC member, Sue Boudreau, for the first time in person. That was pretty cool. But you need a canopy because they protect from the wind, rain if we have it, or if it's 102 degrees, which it has been in the past. So I'm glad that's done. And I'm done with public comment. My comment anyways.
Thank you. Are there any further public comment?
I just wanted to add on to George's. Could we get something on the agenda for next month that we help John Joya buy that canopy?
No, it's on the agenda, so I'll put it here and I'll say, John, we need a canopy.
There you go.
I think it was
willing to help.
Yeah, it's so I got back and I told him we need a canopy. He's like, we have one. And I was like, no, we do not. And then he's like, oh, we don't have a canopy.
No,
so we ordered one.
Okay.
I'll report.
Okay. Further public comment? I
So-
see a hand back there.
Yeah, I don't know if this is reasonable for the MAC, but there has been some really serious issues with mail delivery. Where stuff is going missing in this area, also I think more broadly, and I talked to a guy who was doing the mail at the post office after hours, and he said that there are several reasons for that, but it is something that is a particularly serious problem leading up to the next election. I'm sure it's broader, I'm to the midterms. I'm sure it's broader than just us, but I also wouldn't, I don't know if this is something that we can ask the supervisor about, or what's going on with that, because apparently there's mail
the
theft
post
going on
office.
in neighborhoods.
That's the
Um,
post
as well
office,
as
so it would be the postal inspection service, or it would be talk to the postmaster, see who the postmaster is that covers El Sobrante.
Okay.
That's where that would go. It's not something, I don't think that's part of the county supervisor's purview.
Okay.
It wouldn't help to talk to him, but it's, you need to talk to the management of the post office and give them the
Okay.
specifics of what is transpiring. So,
Okay, thank you.
yes, it's a federal agency, but yes, it's also, they do the mail and they need to know if there's an issue. So.
Yeah, I think,
I have a question, but you think US mail?
Yes, the US mail.
yeah, and I think where we come in, because both George and Melinda are correct. So that is with the federal agency, but the way that we can come in and how similar to the conversation we had in the office is that when I worked in Congress, it was similar as a federal agency. So we would inquire directly to USPS and ask them what's happening in this area. And where we come in as a county agency, or as a county representative, I can forward that information, or anyone can, to the congressman for the area, which will be Congressman Mark DeSagne, and ask him, hey, this is what I heard in the MAC. Is there something going on with USPS? Is there are they understaffed, or there's a transit? What's happening? Is this happening just in our community or somewhere else? And then they will take on the case and inquire with the federal agency. But we wouldn't work that. We'll just refer, for example.
Edgar, Edgar, if you're going to talk to DeSagne, you should probably talk to John Garamendi as well, because he's going to be our congressman as a result of the redistricting of the census. So you might want to talk to both of them.
Yeah, until January.
Until January, but the
To
problem,
representative in January.
Right,
Until
the problem-
January, Mark DeSagne is still our representative.
yeah, I know, but the problem won't necessarily be resolved by the time January. So it wouldn't hurt to give the Honorable Mr. Garamendi a heads up that, hey, this issue might be coming across your table with your new constituents.
No, I agree, and I've already met with some of Garamendi's staff and let them know that when they transition, we have a nice packet of issues that they can take up, and Mark is leaving behind. So,
Any further discussion items? Open discussion items? Okay, I don't see any. Do I see a hand up, or am I just? Okay, I guess not. So in that case, if there are no further items, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next.